I have 10 books I need to really catch up on reviewing because now it's February and I'm still reviewing January books. I'm sorry, I really need to catch up. It's gonna slow down soon. Hang in there, and I hope you still enjoy my reviews despite the fact that I read way too much. I am going to start with a book that I finished. It was the first of a series that I had planned on reading one after the next of, which I did over the course of a couple weeks. This is from the Harbor of Spies series, and I was really looking forward to reading this since the end of last year. The first book is Spark of the Revolution. All three of these books are set during the Revolutionary War time, around the time of the Boston Tea Party, pretty much before the war breaks out. The first book was my favorite of the three. And these three books, the author, these are the only books they've written so far. So if you haven't heard of Megan Soya, her writing is brilliant. The amount of faith that she writes in all of these, I loved it. So much passion of Christ throughout her writing. So if you like historical fiction, please read them. The first book is about Patience and Will. They are siblings that come from Great Britain. They come over to Boston to be with their father. Their mother had recently died, but when they come to the presence of their father, the reasoning for it is that they hadn't seen him in a few years. And Patience really wanted to connect with her father again. And what I really loved about this book is the beauty of her trying to restore that relationship between herself and her father. I cried while reading it because I don't have a good relationship with my father at all. It cut deep for me. But this is also a love story on top of it. So when she gets to Boston, there is a guy there named Josiah. Is starting to get involved with some espionage type of stuff. You know, the Boston Tea Party. If you don't know that history, please learn about it. It is fascinating. Josiah wants to be a part of that whole process of history before it happens. And because of the fact that Patience comes from England and now she's in America, she is learning about what that looks like for her to be kind of in the middle of that between her loyalist father and meeting these people that are patriots, and how she really wants to have peace with both, but she's trying to be understanding. It is a very sweet romantic tale too. I have no content to give you. This is a great book. There is talk of loss, there is death in this, and there is espionage. The second book is Secrets of the Revolution, and this is about Will's story. Will, he doesn't know if he should go back to England because he wants to, but then he hears word from a woman that he was hoping to form a bond with and how she kind of doesn't want to be with him. So he decides to stay in Boston. But while he's there, he starts to understand this one woman that works at the apothecary. So he's trying to get to know Hannah, and he is starting to get talked to by someone that wants him to be a spy. Now, he works for a printing press. He really enjoys it, and it is through them that he is trying his best to find some freedom and liberty for the people of America. This one has so much history in it. There's even they even stuck Paul Revere in this story, which I thought was brilliantly done. This one was very adventurous compared to the first book. There is some more violence in this one. The love story, I really like how the characters get to know one another in this one. There's a lot of dialogue, and I love that. For the last one, Scars of the Revolution, which just came out in January. This is about the stepsister, Libby. Now, while they were in the second book, there is a loyalist that comes around. He had been a friend of the father of Libby, who had deceased. This is before her mother was married to the father of Will and Patience, so there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. It's not really a spoiler because it's talked about in the very beginning of the first book. Libby, she had met this man when she was only 14, and now she is in her 20s, and he comes back hoping to actually see her father and then realizing he's gone. Now, his name is Isaac, but he was kind of told that he had to be a soldier. His father made him one back in England, and now he's over here doing the duty of his father. He is also betrothed to a woman in England that he's never even met. And he's starting to learn a lot more about what the culture is like in America. And he struggles between being a loyalist and also starting to gain feelings for Libby. And there is talk about spies in this, but it's like accidental spying that takes place. So this is a different take compared to the first two, where they chose to be spies. There's a lot of faith in this story, though I feel like it's not as strong in this book as the other two. But I do feel like Libby is such a woman of valor. She's like very in between, you know, if she has feelings for a loyalist, but she also is very strongly opinionated about being a patriot. It's just interesting how she wants peace between everyone and she doesn't want any death. She wants to find a peaceful solution. I just really love this whole series. I highly recommend it. It was very good. This is one of my very, very favorite books of January. It made it to my top 3. This is a story about a young woman who tries to escape a bad situation in England, and she goes to Montreal in Canada. And while she is there, she's trying to find someone named Stephen that she had known when she was younger and hasn't seen in several years, like 5 years. He's going to help her, and he says that this guy Reed, that this man, he comes from Scotland and he is a fur trader, and he is going to help her find him because he has something that he needs to make up for, a life-saving situation. This is his way of repaying that debt. This is Charlotte. This is set in like 1803 or so. It's against the law for a European woman to go with a fur trader on the trail that they have. You can only be a native person to be on there. So she has to dress up as a man, as a disguise, so that way she could go see this man that she wants to see to try to escape this other man. So there's a whole lot of stuff. She ends up spending many months on this trail to try to get in touch with this guy. So she's stuck with this fur trader, Reed, for so long. They start to really be drawn to one another. There's a lot of talk about attraction in this, and this might have questionable content for a Christian book. There was something fascinating that might be problematic for some people. Now, if you know me here, I'm a resources advisor for a nonprofit that fights human trafficking. So I read a lot of books about that. And there is a form of human trafficking in this book. They talk about Native women and how they're kind of passed off to fur traders on the trail to comfort them. And it's very interesting because they also try to make it seem like they're empowered at the same time, where these men could marry them, but the women can leave whenever they want. But the way they totally make it seem like it's not a good thing too. And he talks highly against it. He does not approve, and he has many reasons why. And it's just really heartbreaking to read about that. This is my first Gabrielle Meyer book, but the way that she writes, it is so amazing. And it makes me have these deep feelings while I read of compassion and longing to help people. The descriptions throughout this, I felt like I was on the trail with them. But this does talk tons about the temptations that these two face and the temptations of other of the men, because they're like without women for so long. It's really frustrating at times because there's just a lot of emphasis on that. But the faith elements in this were really strong too. The bond that they make, I just love it. Both of these people feel drawn to obeying God. They have certain things that they feel they have to do, and they are very determined to be bold in those moments. Now, there is murder in this book. There is attempted murder. There is talk of a woman being sexually assaulted, and then another woman who is definitely sexually assaulted and dealt with justice involved in that. Be prepared to read a lot of disturbing things. I'd say spice level, this is like not completely clean, but it's mostly all clean. It's hard to describe that. There is a sense of propriety in this. There's a clear distinction between sinfulness and not, but there's, resisting temptation as well, and the struggle with that and doing what's right. But there is one scene in particular that kind of disturbed me, and you have to think about a man and a woman, but a woman disguised as a man. To protect her, he has her in his own tent. So they're in close quarters with each other overnight. So that's kind of on the border there. But there is a scene that I was like, that's a little bit too much. I feel like she should have separated people a little bit. It just was a little bit on that edge there of not being clean. The Mighty Miss Malone. This was a very sad story. This is a middle grade book. I'm sorry for the glare here. Let me try to get it not glare. This is about Deza, and it's set during the Depression, and she's living in an area where they live in poverty. She lives with her parents and her brother. Her brother has the gift of singing. Everyone loves his voice so much. Baseball games, he's even asked sometimes to sing. Her brother is older than her, but he looks much younger because he is malnourished. He is not really grown, but they don't actually say that, but it's happening. But someone that's a child probably wouldn't understand that. While she has really, really bad teeth, but you don't hear about it until like halfway through. And there's a lot of things that happen in this story to this family. They're just really sad, but then there is something that happens that helps them out as well. But there is a time where they're living in even deeper poverty. They end up moving to Flint, Michigan. This is such a great historical fiction story. This is by the same guy that wrote Bud Not Buddy, which my son read. I did not read. Deza, she loves to write so much, but I think the problem in this book is they make such a big deal about her writing earlier on in this book, but when it comes to halfway through to the end of the book, it's like no longer she really writes. And I was like, shouldn't that be, they like highlighted it right away in this beginning part of the book. You would think it would have kept going. They would have brought up stuff near the end. She's a great student. There is some talk about racism without having any racist remarks stated from what I can remember. But it is Black History Month. Granted, I read this in January, but this review is in February. And I always enjoy reading stories about people of color. And I think it's very important to understand people of different cultures and different ethnic backgrounds too, especially give voices to people that have been oppressed for ages. There is a murder in this. Like I said, there's sad situations from the Depression time. And there's also lying and deceit. Even a point in time when there's like a speakeasy, the only thing they say is that there's someone throwing up outside of a speakeasy. A Castaway in Cornwall, my first standalone Julie Clausen that I've read, and I didn't really feel like it held up as much as I hoped. These characters that I couldn't feel connected to be honest with you. It wasn't a bad story. It was very historical, very interesting, but I just couldn't connect to the couple in this, especially the woman, the main character. Her name is Laura. She lives in North Cornwall in England. So the Cornish people, they have like their own language, especially back then. It was a big shipping area filled with shipwrecks that would come afloat. So in the beginning, there is a shipwreck and there is this man that Laura tries to rescue with her uncle, and she tries to help out with reviving him and helping him. And they don't know if he is someone that they should be worried about because there is a war going on with France. And they find out this man, his name is Alexander, and he is French. But he also says, well, you know, my mother was Cornish, so he understands the language. And he says that he lived in Jersey in the Channel Islands, but he's also French. And a lot of people in Jersey speak French. He's keeping things back about everything and about his past. His character was really good. I loved learning about him. I couldn't connect to Laura one bit. But throughout this, he has this childhood friend who is like out to get him. That guy, he's a pain. And it was a slow book. I feel like a lot of her books, she drags things on sometimes where I feel she should shorten her book a bit. And this one is definitely one of those. There is murder and death, a death of a child talked about. There's affairs brought up. There is something where at one point a woman warms up a man who is sick in bed by just laying next to him. There's talk about imprisonment. There are drownings. Now going into February, the Belle of Chatham. This is very interesting to me who lives in New Jersey. Chatham is in New Jersey, only about half an hour from me. I've been through there. It's a very ritzy place. They're rich there. You know, she's rich, so it kind of made sense to me. I'm like, oh, some things don't change in 250 years or so. So this is Maybelle. They call her May. She is a beauty. She has a younger sister named Coralie. I love her name. Coralie always has to be in her shadow. Coralie is very jealous. Their parents are no longer alive, but they have 3 brothers. One that still lives at home with them. The other 2 are married, and the one that lives at home, he is a soldier, and he is a little bit higher ranked, and he has friends that he brings to stay with them while they're in Morristown. Now, Morristown is very close to where Chatham is. Morristown is an extremely historical place here in New Jersey. I have been there several times for historical things. I love it there. During the Revolutionary time period, Chatham was not a place of war, but there were a lot of people that would come in and out of there. There were instances where they didn't know if you were a loyalist or a patriot, and a lot of people didn't want to be too involved. They wanted some peace. But in Chatham, it was well known to be more of a patriot town. This is the first New Jersey historical fiction book I've ever read, and I want more. Other people, please write more. I love it. We have such rich history from that time period. So she has this guy that comes around. I think his name is, now it's spelled R-H-Y-S. So I don't know if it's Reese or Rise, but I'm gonna think that the Welsh might be Rhys because he's a Welshman. And what I thought was so interesting, at the very, very end of the book, there's an author's note, and she says that she based that character off of a real man named Daniel Morgan. And I'm related to Daniel Morgan. He is one of my great uncles. And it's funny because that's my great grandmother from her line directly. So I actually looked up to see about Daniel Morgan's parents and grandparents, and there were matches where he definitely was a brother to one of my great grandfathers. So that fascinated me because I was like, wow, I got to read history of my own family in this book. So anyway, I just found that fascinating because New Jersey, my family has been here for a long time. So I just really loved that that was a thing incorporated. A lot of this is the history of the Revolutionary War in New Jersey, like too much sometimes, where it kind of bothered me because I wanted more story of the two, of Rhys or Rise and May. So they have what a lot of people have been saying, they have instant love. I feel like it's not really instant love, it's instant attraction, and then they want to get to know each other and they just enjoy one another so much and their company that then they fall in love pretty quickly. And I thought it was really cute, and I feel like it made sense, honestly, because that happens to many people. And then they end up going through New York. There's talk about Virginia in this, which is funny because Shenandoah is where Rhys came from, which is Daniel Morgan eventually moved to Virginia, but I've been to Shenandoah and I love it there. So it's just interesting. There's a lot of war violence in this, is real history talked about in this. There are lots of names brought up. While I absolutely love the story, to be honest with you, I gave this 4 stars. I thought it was very fascinating. I wanted more dialogue and connection of the main characters. I feel like it should have been more invested in their relationship rather than the historical stuff. Give me more. It didn't explain what happened to some of the characters. They're just kind of like, we don't know. And there was a really real situation in this that was really sad between the couple, and it made sense, but it was really like, what? When I read it, I was like, that doesn't make sense for how like obsessed he is with her. So I was just kind of like taken aback, but I like get it, but it was just really sad. Great for New Jerseyans, great if people want to learn about the Revolutionary War period. Once Upon a Cat. This book just came out. I read it on my Nook and I just really thought it was going to be as good as some of the other stories from the series, but it's my least favorite. I think that part of it is my fault. There are 2 novellas that were in between or somewhere in the series, and I didn't read the novellas. I've read only the actual books that came out. So now I got to read the novellas because these 2 characters were in the novellas. But this is about Thea. She has her own cafe. She has a cat named Ginger. She gives rent to Nathaniel, or Nat, but she's known Nat for a long time, over a decade. They once were in love and now their relationship is strained. But at one point while he is in the cafe, someone casts a spell on him and turns him into a cat. So this is like the Frog Prince, but the difference is that he's not a frog, he's a cat. That made me sad because I love the Frog Prince story. When I was a little girl, I used to kiss frogs. Frogs are my favorite animal. I love toads and frogs, amphibians. I love them. I didn't grow up with the Disney princess, that Disney version of the Frog Princess, and it was very different to me than the story of the Frog Prince, but it was interesting. But I really wanted the Frog Prince story to be retold and not with a cat. It worked out okay. So he's turned into a cat. There is a certain way that he can change to a human once in a while. The 2 of them have to work out their problems, basically. For content, in case you're worried about it, there is talk about someone saying they're an herb witch, where they're creating tonics to try out of herbs to try to help him not be a cat anymore. I don't know. It was so-so. The other stories, I felt a little more connected to the characters. I thought that their relationship was sweet, but I don't know. I guess I was a little let down by this one. Maybe because it wasn't a frog. Just a regular boy. I feel like I wasn't in the right mindset to read this one. Been on my to-read list for one of the longest of all the books that I have had on it. So when I put this on my TBR, I was like, well, I got to get this done with. And I still like struggled every once in a while to take it off. And then I was like, no, but the story does sound like it might be interesting. And when I started reading this, I almost gave up on it in the first 30, 40 pages. I was just like, but then I pushed through and it did turn out pretty cute. I actually read this book really quickly. This is about a boy named Remy. His dad, he hears that there's something going on and he thinks the world's going to explode basically. So he takes his child, who's only 5 years old, into the wilderness to try to live without any technology, without any heat, without any bathrooms. He just expects this child now to be like an equal to him. He doesn't want him to call him dad. He wants him to call him Roy, his first name. And Remy, he's like thinking, like, you get inside. I love his perspective, actually. You get inside of this child's head of how much he wants his father to actually care about him and spend time with him. There is something that is really sad that happens, and Remy is left alone on his own for a while, like over a year. And then there's the perspective of Anne. She is someone that has 2 foster children that she adopted, and she is married, but she has marital problems with her husband, Chris. She kind of says, I want another child. Can we find another one? And she gets a call from the person that deals with that, and she hears about this boy in the wilderness that they're trying to get because they keep seeing him, but they haven't been able to get him, and they think he's on his own. So it goes back and forth for a bit. It gets to the point where the 2 of them meet, and it's very lovely. The bond is very nice. I liked it. For content, I don't know if there's like a certain agenda. It was like kind of mixed. Like I feel like there was a little bit of a push, but it wasn't bad. It's hard to explain this. The only language in this is the D word, and it is said about 6 or 7 times. Someone that had been trying to commit suicide at one point, and they describe how. There's talks about a possible school shooting that was taking place. I get it for the book. For this boy's sake, I get it. I feel like sometimes they were going off the deep end. So that's all. Like, I felt like we were taking away from the story, and I wanted to keep that story. Like, it was just like, wait, what's happening now? What? But some of it made sense for the time period that they were talking about. So I don't know. I gave this 3 stars. It wasn't terrible, and I got sucked into it. So there is that. And the last book. This is an independent book, The Crooked Path Home. I know the author. My entire life I've known her. She is one of my mom's close friends. I call her Aunt Ursi. Her name is Ursilia. I had no idea that was her full name. I always knew her as Ursi. So I was like, oh, so I call her Aunt Ursi. So you can only get this book on Amazon. I haven't shopped on Amazon for almost a year come March, but my mom was given the copy, and I said, could I borrow it? And she's like, yeah. She's like, you're just gonna read this in 3 hours anyway. She did. I was like, okay. And she was right. So my Aunt Ursi, she tells her story. She was born in Argentina, and she talks about her upbringing and what that was like, how she was raised. I found that part fascinating. It was very well written for that part of the story. And there's even some photos that she includes. And then she starts talking about how she was put through Catholic school and how she wanted to have faith. She was an atheist, and how she really wanted to know Jesus, and that it took her many years before she started to feel a bond to Christ, even though she prayed so long and so hard for this faith. But then she gets married, and they move to New Jersey. And while in New Jersey, they find different churches to try to connect with. They learn about the Jesus movement. She does talk about what that was like when she had her first couple kids, and how like all these dirty hippies were around, and she was like not in that scene at all. And it's funny because during that time is when she met my mom, who was also not in that scene at all. She's only a few years older than my mom, but the 2 of them became friends during the Jesus movement. And she talks a little bit about that church that they met at. And I know several things about that church, but she's so nice that she doesn't really bring out the drama of what happened at that church. If it was a deep thing that you went through, it's good to give explanations so we could learn from it. But I feel like she was doing her best to not step on anyone's toes with how she was writing this. And I feel like it wasn't flowing well. She went from church to church to church, and how she wanted to be in ministry, and she didn't talk enough about her experiences at like that point going forward. I felt like there was more depth in the beginning of this, but then there like goes away. Like something got lost in this for me. I feel like her writing wasn't as well done after the first part. And I also know things that happen in her life, and I wish she would have shared more in depth, but again, she doesn't want to hurt anyone, but it is her story, and I feel like she should be able to share her story. She does talk about her kids, her grandkids, and her great-grandkids. Now, she did eventually go back to the denomination of Catholicism, and honestly, I feel like she never left it. It's just that she just went to different churches at the time. Like, honestly, it's like me as a Mennonite, if I try to find a church really close to me, but I'm still considered a Mennonite because that's where my theology and my belief in the Bible like stems the most of. And if I were to go to some other denomination, I feel like I'd still be saying like, well, I'm a Mennonite, I'm just going to this church. I think it might be a lot different for her because there's a huge difference between going to a mass and going to like a Baptist church. Big difference. So I get it. Catholics would probably enjoy this book. And I liked her story. I learned a lot about her. I didn't know so many things about her in this. I have never actually like fully interacted with her one-on-one. It's only been through my mom. My mom is in this. She was way too many pictures in this. There's my mom right there. So she has pictures throughout this thing. There's another picture of my mom somewhere too. Like I said, they've known each other since the 70s. There's my mom right here. I wish she went through an actual publisher and got better editing, because then she also goes in the very end. She starts talking about people that inspired her is part of the appendum. She talks about Justin Martyr, who I love learning about Justin Martyr actually. Talks about Mary. It's not until all after that that we finally get our epilogue. I wish there was more like This is February 4th that I do this review. I have definitely read a book every day of this year. I think February is going to slow down for me now that the Olympics is on, because I love the Olympics and I get glued to it. I don't think I'm going to be reading much while watching the Olympics, to be honest with you. So I plan on during this time of reading a longer book again, so that will probably be more of my focus. We'll see. I have book club books I gotta get to as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here today, and I hope you have a wonderful reading time. Let me know if you want to read any of these or if you have read these. Thank you and have a great day.